Response video on the general subject of evolution and what it means. First, I guess I'll post a link to a video by rozeboosje. Pretty good series on evolution. Alright, then the rest of the videos, I guess it's about the To Be Serious video, and then Pyro did a video on learning. So getting to the To Be Serious video, which again references this epigenetic stuff and systems within nature and cooperation and altruism. I mean, it's just such nonsense. So I guess we'll go with two examples. The first, I've read some of the stupid websites she posts links to, and you can just tell from the title of those stupid books that it's got to be nonsense. And the music of life. I mean, come on. So anyway, they reference things like insects and ants and stuff. And the fact that, there's cooperation because, some are soldier ants and some are, sacrifice themselves, and kamikaze ants and farmer ants and all the rest of this stuff. Yeah, and they're all birthed by a queen, okay? It's all her genetics. They are programmed to be what they are. They are not altruistic in any sense of our understanding of the word, where one would sacrifice something, not merely do what they're programmed to do, what their drives and desires compel them to do. As individual ants, they are acting selfishly. They don't know they're being just tools. They don't know they're just slaves to a system. It's essentially programmed slavery is all it is. They're not captives because they're captive by their programming. And another example might be elephant seals, which I've brought up before, where the alpha male gets all the women, like 50 or 100, and the rest of the males are out of luck for their whole life. Most of them never have intimate relations with a female seal, and they end up just probably just being shark food, just to protect the colony. And but that genetically works for their system, okay, to have that dominant system. And they're not losers by choice or will or desire, but that's the way it works out. And there might even be an organism out there that once they realize, or once they physically know they're the loser, that they become more likely to be self-sacrificing. So in the sense, their genetics could be programmed to kill them basically off, let them be the first victim of some predator or something, and that way preserving the colony, preserving the group. The fact that in nature might makes right, and that grouping together has advantages. I mean, come on, this is not breaking Darwin's science in any fucking way. He knew about this stuff a long time ago. And the fact that evolution takes place in isolation, he knew that fact too, okay? He went to the Galapagos Island, he saw the iguanas that are basically sea iguanas that are eating, diving into the water and eating algae. Come on, don't underestimate the man, and don't underestimate the science that was revealed through his observations and his detailing of the environmental circumstances. And yeah, we've added some information about DNA and genetics, and it only confirms the truth that there is in fact a selfish gene, that we are essentially bacteria with brains. This is how evolution works, and Darwin understood it pretty well. Life puts down a layer, a biosphere, the first cells put down a layer, and then that was basically fertilizer for another layer through change. And so subsequent generations ended up eating their ancestors, which we are doing essentially the same thing, because each organism attempts to find an environment it can survive in. It just attempts to survive, and it finds a niche, or it finds a location, or it finds some protection, or it finds some way to do that better, and it's built into their genetics, then that will be passed on, and that will move on into the future. And this stupid, idiotic science you speak of, this epigenetics bullshit. I mean, it's 1.005% of evolution, not 50%, not 90%, not any of that bullshit. And the only thing we pass down based on our environment is usually pollutants, damage to DNA. I don't think you can point to any any evidence of any kind of circumstantial changes that happens to an individual that it happens to its DNA that doesn't in some indirect way have to do with damaging their genetic code. And the fact that that would be passed on is just common sense. I mean, if you break the blueprint, if you smudge it or you put an ink spot on it and degrade it, yeah, that change is going to be passed on, because your DNA has no way to recover, because the blueprint is the blueprint. So if the blueprint is broken, yes, it's going to stay fucking broken until something, until it reproduces with a norm that's going to take that stain off of it. So it's just a stupid, this is just such nonsense to have this argument that the science of evolution is tending towards some kind of you know, sophisticated or grandiose mechanisms. No, they're crude mechanisms. There's nothing unknown or uncertain about the basic blueprint, the basic idea of how this thing works. And as I was stating, it's just these layers of organisms. And nature doesn't recreate the organism each time. No, it builds on what exists. So as cells become more complicated, they add features. They don't necessarily throw features away. I mean, over time, things can atrophy and become useless, and they can become something that is detrimental to the new system design, such as legs on a snake. And so then they will they will atrophy away over time. And you might find some vestigial parts still remaining, that because they do no harm and they do no good. And that might be where evolution will stop eliminating the change, the difference. And so, but yeah, life just keeps layering on top of itself, and one layer just becomes fertilizer for another layer. And we become more and more complicated. We have things living on us, billions of microbes living on us. We just become another layer to be exploited by another form of life, either crude or sophisticated. And there's just no magic here. And so yes, we've become quite eccentric, quite complex over billions of years of evolution. That is no surprise. And the, you know, and as I have pointed out, the most magnificent thing about us, our intelligence, we acquired about 50 or 60,000 years ago, and we were doing nothing with it. That's how. So nature didn't even it gave us a secret potential. It didn't even test us for. Our ancestors survived without it. They dominated the world without it, without knowledge of rocket ships and flying to the moon and how fast the speed of light was. They did it all without any of that information, because all they needed was a bigger club to beat their neighbors with. And that's our history. That's where we've come from. We're just bacteria with fucking brains. All right, now to Pyro. Pyro is sort of making fun of my statement that I don't have much respect for learning. Okay, because yeah, I think most of what we learn is to unlearn, is to get the false notions, the programming out of our brains. We've been propagandized with the notion of Mother Nature, our God, or some intelligent design, all these false notions of purpose and creativity in the biological system. And it's been a big fat lie. Nature is shit. Nature is crude forces. What it has created is sloppy and unproductive. And we have acquired this incidental intelligence, this capacity to contemplate the universe, and we should do fucking more with it than sit there and just scheme to fulfill our desires. And we know what we are. We're addicted. We're born addicted to life. That's just the fact. And so from my perspective, we know all we need to know. There's no grand fucking brilliant truth still remaining out there to discover. There's lots of details, but they don't have anything to do with the basic equation of knowing where the fuck we came from, what fucking forces created us, and how we are going to contrive ourselves a purpose. And that purpose has to somehow balance this thing called suffering with this thing called pleasure or happiness or satisfaction of human aspirations. And somehow we have to work out that equation. But there's no truth out there that's going to do it for us. There's not new information out there that's going to answer these questions. These are questions we have to answer by looking at life straight and simple and for what it is. And it really isn't that complex equation. So I think there is a point in a person's life where they have acquired enough information. where they've acquired enough knowledge. And the key knowledge to know is to have a skepticism and to thoroughly think through the propaganda that we're fed from birth, the social pop culture bullshit that is revered, that is turned into religion, that is made spiritually significant. That bullshit is the obstacle to understanding. And it isn't so much how much you know, it's how much you don't know, or how much you've finally gotten out of your brain, how much bullshit you removed. Because the rest of it becomes quite simple once you have lost your own prejudices, once you've destroyed the false notions in your fucking head. It becomes quite obvious what we are. We are cheese chasers, damn it. We have been built by a DNA molecule to be a cheese fucking chaser, and that's all it's fucking about. We are bacteria with brains. It's no more dramatic than that, but I will concede having the brains makes us significant. It makes us capable of creating a purpose, and the sooner we admit what we are, the sooner we'll be able to create a rational purpose for ourselves. So, the end. Enough said.